tonight's homework on function notation is really going to start to help us understand how we work with f of x, g of x, and all those types of function notations. So the first question asks us to put the expressions f of -4, g of -3, and h of 2 in increasing order. Now, each of those functions are represented by a different piece. You can see that f of x is going to be represented by the graph, so we'll deal with that one first. So f of -4 means that x is equal to -4. So what we need to do is find that point, in this case -4 comma 0. So then f of -4 is really equal to 0 because that's our output at -4. G of -3 wants us to work with the equation. Remember, we always put everything being squared in parentheses. So -3 squared minus 4. That can just go completely into our calculator, and we end up with g of -3 equal to 5. -3 squared is 9, minus 4 is 5. And the last one, h of 2, well, this one's easy because it comes off the table. So we just look at what our output is when x is 2, and we end up getting 12. So these are actually in increasing order already. So we get f of -4, followed by g of -3, followed by h of 2. The second one is a similar style, and there's going to be a lot of plugging into equations, but it's going to take us a little time because they want to know which of the following statements is true, and the only way to do that is to plug in for each answer choice to find out which ones are true and which ones are false. So for the first one, it says f of 0 is greater than g of 0, and we can see they give us two equations that they want us to plug into. So the only way we can go about this is to just plug it in, and let's see what we get. So 2 times 0 minus 3 gives us -3 for f of 0. And then for g of 0, we get 3 over 2 times 0 plus 1, which is 1. The first one is going to be a false statement because it says f of 0 is greater than g of 0, and we can see clearly that 1 is greater than -3, so therefore that statement's going to be false. And the second one, f of 2 is equal to g of 2. Well, we're going to do our same process of plugging in. So for f of 2, 2 times 2 is 4, minus 3 is 1. And for g of 2, we get 3 over 2 times 2, which might be a little bit more challenging, so I would suggest you use your calculator. 3 over 2 times 2 is, 3 plus 1 is 4. So clearly those are not equal, so choice 2 is going to be out. The third one, f of 8 equals g of 8. Well, we'll continue our process of plugging in. 2 times 8 minus 3. 2 times 8 is 16, minus 3 is 13. And g of 8, 3 over 2 times 8 plus 1. 3 over 2 times 8 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So f of 8 and g of 8 are both 13. There's our answer. Just for the last one, g of 4 is less than f of 4. So if I do, and I'll do g first this time because it came first on the list. So when we do that, we get g of 4 equals 3 over 2 times 4 plus 1. 3 over 2 times 4 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And f of 4 is 2 times 4 minus 3, which gives us 5. So obviously, g of 4 is not less than -4 in that case, so the only one that is true is choice 3. In the third one, word problem, and they give us a lot of information here, but only some of it's going to be useful. Physics students drop a ball from the top of a 100-foot high building and models its height above the ground as a function of time with the equation h of t equals 100 minus 16t squared. The height, h, is measured in feet, and the time t is measured in seconds. So they've given us a lot of information so far, but only some of it is going to be useful, and mostly what we need is the fact that we have an equation. H represents the height above the ground, and t represents the number of seconds. We want to find h of 2 and interpret its meaning in the context of the problem. Well, h of 2, okay, really means that t is 2. So every place we see a t in our equation, we are going to substitute in a 2. Best bet is to just use your calculator, plug everything in at the same time, and you get 36 feet. So to interpret this, we need to figure out what each of the numbers represent. So the 2 was our time, and the 36 is our height above the ground. So after 2 seconds, the ball is 36 feet above the ground. All right. And then the last part, does your equation predict the ball will hit the ground after 2 seconds? Well, if at 2 seconds the ball is 36 feet above the ground, that's not going to be the point where it hits the ground. So the answer is no. If it was on the ground, h of 2 would be equal to 0, representing the fact that it was 0 feet above the ground. But since it's equal to 36, we know that is not going to be the point where the ball hits the ground. And the fourth one, if you know that f of -4 equals 8, then what xy coordinate must lie on the graph y equals f of x? Well, if we look at this piece, we know that -4 is going to be our input, which is going to represent our x, and 8 is going to be our output, which represents our y. So the coordinate that must lie on our graph is -4, 8, because the input was -4 and the output was 8. So whatever goes inside of our parentheses is our input, in this case representing the x, and whatever it's set equal to is going to be our output, in this case the 8.